Google "my bosses" and you'll see the following autocomplete options: abusive, crazy, mean, incompetent, and lazy. Opinion surveys produce similar results. Results like these reveal bad leadership as the #1 cause of voluntary turnover worldwide. Meanwhile, 65% of Americans say they would rather change their boss than get a pay raise. This short-sighted response fails to recognize that the next boss might not be any better, but worse. What to make of the obvious fact that most leaders, inept or otherwise, are male? Since women make up around 50% of the adult population, and throughout much of the industrialized world outnumber and outperform men in college, we might expect at least equal representation of women and men in leadership positions. And yet reality disagrees. In most parts of the world, the notion of leadership is so masculine that most people would struggle to name one famous female business leader. 7. Powerful lessons from the book, Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders? Number 1. I first asked this question in 2013 in a brief Harvard Business Review essay whose title summarized the issue, Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders? I argued that the underrepresentation of women in leadership was not due to their lack of ability or motivation, but to our inability to detect incompetence in men. When men are considered for leadership positions, the same traits that predict their downfall are commonly mistaken, even celebrated, as a sign of leadership potential or talent. Consequently, men's character flaws help them emerge as leaders because they are disguised as attractive leadership qualities. Number 2. In business, a bad leader significantly affects subordinates by reducing their engagement, their enthusiasm for their jobs, and the meaning and purpose people find at work. Global surveys report that a staggering 70% of employees are not engaged at work, and that only 4% of these employees have anything nice to say about their bosses. Quite clearly, good leadership is not the norm, but the exception. Productivity loss is not the only downside of disengagement. Disengaged employees are also more likely to quit their jobs. Employee turnover incurs a huge burden, including separation costs, damaged morale, and productivity losses associated with the time and resources needed to find and train newcomers. Between 10 and 30% of the employee's annual salary is lost to turnover costs. The figure is even higher for replacing leaders, since top executive search firms will charge around 30% of the leader's annual salary on top. Number 3. How good do you think you are? Exceptional achievers are sometimes quick to attribute their accomplishments to their confidence. Competence is how good you are at something. Confidence is how good you think you are at something. Competence is an ability. Confidence is the belief in that ability. Such belief or self-evaluations can refer to learned skills, e.g., singing, kissing, climbing Mount Everest, and managing people, or to personality traits, e.g., smartness, likability, persistence, and creativity. Our self-esteem is strongly influenced by how good we think we are, and the more important the task, the more it influences our self-concept. Number 4. He is a dreadful manager, said a worker. I have found it impossible to work for him. Very often, when told a new idea, he will immediately attack it and say it is worth less or even stupid, and tell you that it was a waste of time to work on it. This alone is bad management. But if the idea is a good one, he will soon be telling people about it as though it was his own. Few people would like the idea of working for such a boss, and even fewer would expect a boss like that to be held up as one of the best business leaders of all time. Number 5. Leadership, the process that enables individuals to work together in the pursuit of a common goal, has been a critical resource throughout the evolution of humankind. Every significant accomplishment in human history, the use of fire, the invention of writing, the mapping of the human genome, and so on, sprang from collective action that could not have occurred without leadership. Whether our goal is to increase the representation of women in leadership or improve the quality of our leaders, we must apply the same solutions. We need to properly understand leadership talent and learn how to measure it. These solutions are easier said than done. Too many decision makers overrate their intuition. and political agendas interfere with the selection of talented leaders, especially when the decision makers are more interested in their own agendas than their organization's well-being. Knowing how to detect true leadership potential is clearly not enough. We also have to introduce measures that place better leaders in key roles and promote a culture that helps them succeed. But without fixing the parameters we use to determine whether someone has talent for leadership, we cannot expect much progress. Number 6. Good leadership requires intellectual capital. The key components of intellectual capital, domain-specific expertise, experience, and good judgment, not only enable leaders to perform their specific roles, but also give them credible ITY with their followers. The German philosopher Martin Heidegger once noted that the main difference between individuals with and without expertise is that the former can quickly ignore the irrelevant aspects of a problem. Imagine an expert looking at a chessboard, a wine shop, or the cockpit of a Boeing 747. Unlike a novice, a person with strong intellectual capital will quickly focus on the relevant components of a situation, while a novice would get distracted by irrelevant features, mistaking noise for signals. Individuals with strong intellectual capital are also more able to rely on their instincts when they have to solve work-related problems because experience and expertise have made their intuition more data-driven. But by definition, experts are a minority. Number 7. What key signals should organizations focus on if they want to detect true leadership potential? The first type of signal concerns intellectual capital, which, as described earlier, comprises the candidate's expertise, knowledge, and formal credentials. The most common vehicle for assessing intellectual capital is the curriculum vitae, resume, LinkedIn profile, or online portfolio. Emphasis on intellectual capital will continue to decrease as focus on psychological capital grows, but there's no doubt that intellectual capital still matters. In particular, to weed out unqualified candidates, leaders need to be credible with their subordinates, and technical skills and hard expertise provide credibility. Another common approach to evaluating intellectual capital is the selection interview. Regardless of the job, industry, or type and size of an organization, the leadership identification process will always include an interview, and usually more than one. Furthermore, job interviews are often the only way that organizations evaluate external candidates for a leadership role. And even when used in conjunction with other tools, interviews are likely to have more weight than other measures do. If candidates excel in other selection criteria but do poorly on the interview, they will probably not be selected. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, you probably will not see us again. If you have, congratulations, you are growing every day.